Hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. It's Thursday, March the 13th, 2025. Hey, how is everybody? Hope you're doing great.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Dave. How are you?
Well, I'm not happy. I'm not happy.
Why?
I went on my little patio there because I'm on the ground floor of my building here.
Yeah.
I'm on the patio and I was drinking the coffee this morning. Not one, not two, but three skunks in a matter of 5 minutes. Like I opened my patio door and there's one sitting like 10 feet away. I just told him, "Scram, get out of here," as they tried to scramble back into the building. But he took off. And he or she took off. And then I'm sitting there sipping my coffee, and another one shows up. And then I thought, okay, well, and I said the same thing, "Scram, get out of here," and they took off. And then all I'm doing there is reading my phone, and then I look up, and there's another one, 3. Oh my God! I think, where are these coming from? It's a swarm. I tell you, it's a dangerous place. It's a dangerous place. I live in fear here.
Yeah, I think they probably got a burrow around the corner from your place, right?
Oh, it's a great place for skunks for some reason. They like there's a big long fence from the properties that face Thorlstone Road, the ones that face Crawford, and there's all kinds of little places where in sheds and everything else where they can go.
Yep, and they go underneath them. Yep.
And the big lawns, they dig up grubs and all kinds of. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so do you like people who do things for their buddies?
And what kind of things?
What do you think? Do you do things for your buddies?
For sure. If they ask me for a favor, I would. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you're president of the United States and you ask a buddy, Elon Musk, "Hey, bring me a Tesla. I want to have test drive these Teslas on the White House lawn."
Isn't this remarkable? This is an ethics breach, but of course nobody's good. Too many people are too scared to say anything.
I hope.
Yeah, so he's advertising Teslas.
Yeah, I hope he put some nice tires on them so he can spin them on them. Make mud out of the White House lawn. I mean, what else are you going to do for fun?
I know he didn't drive it. They showed up with.
Yeah.
All I know is that Trump said he's going to. Yeah. So all I know is that Trump is. Your voice is going in and out there.
My voice is going in and out. Really? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Go on.
Okay. Anyway, so so yeah, so no conflict of interest for sure. And Trump, when I say like Trump says he's going to pay for it with a check, but believe me, if that check bounces, I don't think Elon's going to say anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, hey, I'm all agreed for doing things with your buddy, helping your buddy's business even. But I think there's an ethical problem about Teslas, show housing Teslas on the White House lawn. The only other thing about this is that, hey, during the campaign to get into the White House, Trump is saying, "Oh, no, more of this expansion into electric vehicles. We've got to go back to gas."
Yeah, particularly in his first term. Last year during the campaign, he was slagging EVs like crazy. Apparently,
he was. Yeah, he was absolutely slagging EVs. I remember him. There was a whole 3-minute ad on one American channel about him just taking off about EVs and how they're destroying America.
Yeah, it's quite ironic, isn't it? His biggest backer, the guy that gave him over $100 million for his campaign, and then actively joined the campaign, and now is working for free for him in Doge. The guy that the number one thing that he's famous for is Tesla,
Yeah.
And in his own words, Elon Musk. Like the EV was going to save the planet environmentally. Remember, Tesla, Elon Musk had different attitudes before Biden snubbed him, and when he switched to becoming a supporter of Trump, he was more in line with saving the planet with things like EVs, and Trump exactly was the opposite, drill baby drill kind of thing. We don't need no EVs. Now, the most hypocritical thing going on, like he's there buying an electric car from Elon Musk, and everybody's thinking, I thought he hated these things. And then, well, at least he slurred them. But, he flips around anything. I mean, white is black today, blue is green.
Yeah.
He switches it back again,
Yeah. Yeah. And he declared the vehicle was beautiful.
Said it was beautiful, and that it was supporting Musk as being a great American, and because Musk's stocks have dropped a little more than 15%, which is quite radical.
Well, what I find the most disgusting thing about what I've seen with the Tesla stuff is people have, that burning of that Tesla dealership. That was completely out of order. There was no reason for that at all.
Where was that burnt? What city?
I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was in the Midwest somewhere.
Well, it's very unusual. I'm afraid of the extremism on both sides of the issue. We saw what happened at January 6th. The extremists came to Washington, kind of. And there was extremist rhetoric. You had the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, that kind of thing. They were extremist organizations. And now you have, of course, the left extremists. We saw what happened at George Floyd when you had the so-called Antifa going around burning buildings, smashing windows, that kind of thing. The extremism on the left and the right is getting pretty scary here. Republicans have felt that they can't say anything against Trump because of the amount of death threats they're getting from extremist supporters. This is, and our own prime minister, even though you don't like him, JT, and when somebody starts speaking off a death threat or throwing stuff at him, well, come on, man.
Yeah, I know where this dealership that was attacked, somebody torched a dealership in Plaisance de Touche, a suburb of Toulouse in France, last Sunday.
Oh, so it was in France.
It was in France, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully this isn't nothing like
that. There have been, for example, Tesla vehicles destroyed and vandalized since he joined the White House. New York Tesla dealership was targeted in a wave of anti-Elon Musk protests. Protest all you want, that's fine. Tesla set aside a Molotov cocktail, arson, and graffiti on a Tesla in America.
Let's make this very clear. There are people that are working at Tesla, everyday Americans that are working at Tesla. I would have loved to have a Tesla factory up here, but Tesla brags that it is the one company that is totally American. It sources everything from America, much more than the other countries. Even Ford, who does 80% of its sourcing from the U.S., is 20% behind Tesla. So Tesla points that out. But Tesla is a really good car. It's a really good car. Remember, Ford, the Model T and the Model A were really good cars, even though Henry Ford himself was a raging anti-Semite. You can't judge his engineering with his attitude.
I know.
I know it's clearly symbolic, and I know that the Teslas are going down. But if you don't, I would suggest if you're looking for electric car, consider all electric cars, including Tesla, and don't let the politics.
I was looking at the fact that like this Tesla Cybertruck. It's like, are you serious? That's not even a good design. But there've been a I think Ravian was one we talked about last year. There's been about 6 or 7 different brands of electric vehicle. Consider them all.
Well, Trump seems to like the Cybertruck.
Yeah, I suppose it looks like a tank.
Yeah. But
okay.
I'm really kind of afraid of the extremist kind of things that are going on. Basically, resist the Trump and his trolling of Canada, but don't throw any Molotov cocktails or something like that. Just don't do that kind of thing.
Don't be
fight it out. Just fight it out in the trenches. That's all. Don't bother that terrorist kind of shit.
There's no call for terrorism. And Mike says Tesla is boycotted from My Choice of Cars now. Oh, you're going to stick with gas guzzlers, Mike? No, I'm jesting.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Lamborghinis are off my list too, because that's like sour grapes. I can't afford one, so I'll just say I don't want one.
Damn, I thought you were going to leave one in your will.
Oh, that's. I think it was a 63 Pontiac with no wheels and rust. I think that's the one you're going to get.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll give that one a go. Okay, so Google searches for the word recession or tariff are massively on the rise.
Yeah, I would imagine that's in Canada mostly. Reading the article at first, I thought it might be.
It's saying evidence of Americans souring mood is everywhere you look, even in the place you look for evidence, Google. So this is Google searches for tariff and recession.
Okay, yeah, and that's at first I thought it was America, but then as I read it, it sounded like it was more happening in Canada. But in any case, I would imagine.
Yeah. You can find out the geographic. You can find out on Google. You've got to do the relevant. It's not an easy search. I've done it before, but you can find out geographical splits about where things are being searched.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Basically, because tariffs all over the news. If you watch Fox News, tariffs are wonderful, and Trump's a genius. If you watch the little videos coming out of MSNBC or CNN, Trump's a chump. So that part of the news covers hasn't changed.
Yeah,
genius to chump one way or another. Great leader, potentate, the other, that kind of thing.
Yep. Oh yeah, I know. We've seen them all. And to be quite honest, I think we're going to see a lot more. Right? Okay. And Kip saying in the wake of tariff threats, why hasn't Canada done away with the carbon tax to reduce the financial stress on Canadians?
That's a good point. We got to get rid of it immediately.
I take that point. I agree.
But
and we have to think of
Parliament isn't even sitting, Kip. Parliament isn't even sitting.
Yeah.
Both Carney and Poilievre, whoever is going to get in, has announced that they're going to get rid of that carbon tax, at least at the pump, and the carbon tax for gas and oil that heats your house. So that evidently is going. Right now they can't do it because the Parliament is not in session.
Well, it was prorogued till March 28th or something, was it?
Yeah, the end of this month.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, just from the viewpoint, this is a non-partisan thing. Just from the viewpoint of flipping over and getting into the new prime minister into office, I think that time is deserved, right?
Yeah, but he's got a good point there. You could do something immediately. You could
I think you should.
Parliament in together and dump that right off the bat. But if they could do that as soon as Parliament reconvenes, which would be at the end of this month, if they could do that within a week of that, that would be
no. I think I support that. I support that absolutely. And I get that there's a procedure that they've got to go through in order to get Parliament restarted, and we're there now. That we're working through that process, right? And if they can get Parliament restarted beforehand and get the government moving again, I think that would be right. And removing carbon tax would be the right approach.
In the meantime, the Googling thing, I can understand people's apprehension because the Trump government and their spokespersons continue to make it murky about how these work. We're going to charge, like even his spokesman, that Levitt, we're going to charge these other countries the tariff. And repeatedly they asked either Trump or her like that. Well, how do you think that work? You say you're going to charge these countries a tariff, but you're actually charging the tariff to your own consumer.
Yeah.
And they avoid that all the time. They just said the tariffs are going to make us rich. Tariffs make you rich because it's a huge tax that you're paying.
Exactly.
And it's a big tax, basically what it is. If they mean by that by making out of country materials more expensive, that would stimulate growth in industry in the United States. Yeah, on the long term, it might be. We see with the aluminum smelters, they only have 16 of them left in the United States. They used to have quite a few. Maybe they only have 6, but I'm not so sure. But they only have a few aluminum smelters in the United States. It would take a very long time to bring those smelters. They used to have over 30 of them.
If I'm not mistaken, most bauxite comes from Australia and New Zealand, doesn't it? Bauxite
comes from a variety of different places. One of Jamaica used to be a big supplier. I think the American aluminum companies have invested a lot of money in Australia. I'm assuming is because they have large bauxite deposits. Yeah. And they invested in Quebec because Quebec has a huge amount of hydroelectric power, which makes it cheap. The other place they invested is a place like Iceland, where they have a lot of geothermal electric power that they can use. So they would have to this is across the board. This is where the tariffs don't make much sense to me, because the aluminum one particularly, you could think, well, the United States could ramp up some of their old steel mills pretty quick and expand them. You would say in a couple of years they might be able to take up what they got from Canada. They might be able to produce that, but not aluminum. Aluminum, you need a lot of power. You need to be able to guarantee an aluminum smelter sustained power, an enormous amount, 500 to 800 megawatts, that kind of thing, if you want to have a healthy aluminum smelter. So it doesn't make much sense to me that they would put tariffs on aluminum, because they can't produce it, and it won't be able to produce it for 4 or 5 years. In fact, it's doubtful that they'll be able to do it within 10 years. And steel, maybe they could ramp up with 3 or 4 years to, so that even is a doubtful, but it's more likely they can get the steel mill going faster than an aluminum smelter. So some of these things just don't make sense to me. If you're making tariffs, if you do not have the capacity to ramp up your aluminum smelting, immediately, then why put a tariff on them and put that tax onto the American people?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that we can think of here in Canada is our steel and our aluminum are no more prejudiced than any other steel or aluminum coming around from all the other countries. If the United States put the tariff on us, but not other countries, that would put us in a bad place. But as it is, all things are staying the same for the moment, because the U.S. cannot produce that steel or aluminum, so they have to buy it with the extra 25% tariff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mixed feeling. Like you still get the spokespersons talking about how tariffs are going to make you rich, and when somebody says, "Well, that's the consumer that's going to pay for that," they just flip it over, saying, I don't know. And then, of course, you have this idea of a new term that's come up, Trumpsession, where Trump is now kind of admitting that there's going to be a period of transition when this was not supposed to happen before. They were supposed to zoom right up to, there's going to be a period of transition. Everything's going to be great, though. Everything's going to be wonderful. And there might be some pain, in the short term. I don't know. I really don't know what their plans are. They keep trolling us, saying that Canada should become part of the United States. Even Lutnick, I saw him on an interview. He wouldn't ask any questions at all. He just kept going on about how Trump was a genius and how all this was going to happen, and Canada should get its act together and become part of the United States. And he really wasn't answering any questions. There's no depth to these interviews, whether it's Trump, his spokesperson, or Lutnick. There is no depth to it. There is no real explanation. It's the only thing they give you. This is a act of genius,
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that's happening here, which is an important, which is an important thing to do, of course, is one of the things I sent you actually was about the stock market. There's an Al Jazeera article out there saying that U.S. stock market shed 1.7 trillion. Yes, I said trillion off the share price.
Yeah. At one point, and things have sort of stabilized for a while. They haven't gone back up. They, a little tick up, a little tick down now. They're doing what stock market would usually do on pretty mundane days, but that's after this big plunge.
Yeah.
And the 25%.
And let's just put this into perspective. That's the S&P after. That's the S&P. So the first 225 days of the first term is the blue line on this graph. The second term, where we're under 50 days from this, is the yellow line. Right? That is where we sit right now.
Well, I would remove a lot of the alarm right now.
Yeah, I know.
Because nothing really has been proven. Of course, markets are very jittery. They go up and down like crazy. People have to pay attention to them, of course. But all Trump has to do is remove a tariff and they'll go back up again. But I think it's the uncertainty that's driving the markets down. Like I am like a peasant when it comes to what drives the economy, basically under the surface. But most of the sort of money sort of commentators on the radio or on video or whatever say that the American economy is essentially very strong. Trump won't admit it, but Biden left him a pretty robust economy that was moving up. As you saw, the economy was moving up in a way right after, the same as what Obama fixed the economy and Trump inherited it. Biden's administration fixed the economy, and it was on a trend upwards, and it continued upwards, but then, of course, crashed lately. But overall, the economy is very robust. Trump inherited an economy where unemployment was very low. The economy was said to be the envy of the other Western economies, because it had high productivity, low unemployment, and sustainability. So that's the package that Biden handed over to Trump. We'll see. Trump's given it a bit of a shakeup with this tariff stuff, but I don't know if the tariff thing will really come to any real problems in the long run. But what we do have is a trade war that could get out of hand. And as the Wall Street Journal said, it was the stupidest trade war of all time. Now, the Wall Street Journal is a financial sort of newspaper that normally supports.
I like the Wall Street Journal. I remember getting the Wall Street Journal when it first came to North America. I actually, because I used to read the Financial Times once a week in England, and so I'd get my FT news once a week. I did the same with the Wall Street Journal, and it's an interesting newspaper. It really does take a good perspective of things. Don't get it anymore.
Now, the problem is the American economy is in pretty good shape. It might not be after this trade war gets set in. As we see with this trade war and the isolationism of the United States, that did not do it well back in the 30s when it thought it could protect its economy by becoming isolationist and tariff driven. So all that did was slow the world economy right down. What Trump's particular real goal here, we don't know. We have if you take 10 economists and put them in a room to sort it out, they'll come out with 11 different opinions. So no one really knows what's really driving this trade war and what the Trump administration really wants to get out of it. It's very clear that the tariff is not going to generate the kind of money they think they're going to generate. So we really don't know. We really don't know what's going on there. But the Wall Street Journal doesn't like it one bit. And I think they were supporters of Trump when he was elected, were they not?
Yeah, well, generally speaking, I would say the Wall Street Journal, although many people put it on the left, I think the Wall Street Journal tends to take an international, independent stance. Sorry, not an international stance, an independent stance, and with every election, and will tend to put things as they see it. Right. What they deal with is they work it out on the basis of dollars and cents and what makes sense to the stock market, what makes sense to Wall Street. And that's why, that's how they present it. So they don't pick based upon what they think is left or right. They pick based upon what is right for Wall Street.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out what their bias is here.
I think they'll probably, everything I've looked when I've checked bias, it says slightly left.
Yeah, you got to always. It's almost dead center. Yeah, it's like 0.2 points left of center. Like it's like almost dead middle.
Yeah. And the thing is that a journal like that, they're talking about stocks and shares primarily, the economy primarily, and that's why, where they make them, their thing. They're not really that. I don't think they get involved politically.
Well, it may have a slant because Dow Jones and Company is the division that owns it. That's the owner.
Yeah, I know.
Its bias rating it says center. It's a news media and it's national. So it's right in the middle. So kind of a publication you would like, more likely trust, because it is less agenda driven than Fox. Fox is
Well, I would say the agenda.
CNN is kind of dickering around in left field. So what you want is something is more centrist.
Well, I'd say the agenda of the agenda of that is actually on stocks and shares, share trading, right? That's the agenda.
Yeah, well, I was talking about their political agenda.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like
yeah.
any communication. We can see by ourselves on our own CBC. Many times you think it's got a liberal agenda. The way it reports things, and that kind of idea, and the whole idea that journalism overall comes from people that come out of university academia that is more left leaning. So their political slant is what's important here. But Wall Street Journal has just said basically it's a centrist paper, and it says that Trump's trade war is the stupidest of all time. Yeah. I guess we'll find out in time.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing to note, of course, is that one of the things I did note last week when I first started looking at the movement of stocks and shares in relation to Trump's, Trump's position, that Japan's Nikkei and other Pacific Belt stock markets were actually holding their own. But this week, the Nikkei and the Taiwan TAIEX have dropped 2.5%. The Hang Seng slid about 1.5%. So it is having a worldwide effect now.
Well, sure, the idea of a trade war, and the trade war is already ramped up. Trump started it with the 25% tariff thing, and of course he hit the as soon as he hit the metals, the aluminum and steel, the European chimed in, and they hit the United States with $30 billion worth of tariffs. Canada ramped its up, so now it's around 60 billion. It had 30 billion, now it's 60 billion. Mexico's got a unique way of doing it themselves. So we have right now, it's kind of like the world against the U.S. And
while we're talking about that, EU is targeting GOP-led states in terms of their trade backing for their trade war against America.
It's interesting to know too. When I was watching something, I don't know if it was this morning or last night, but there's a bill being presented to Congress that makes it that is asking for Congress to reclaim its power over the presidency, and particularly because some people are that Trump may even send troops up to Canada to take the critical minerals and stuff like that. So there's an effort by one posting a bill in Congress saying that we shouldn't do that no one can invade an ally without congressional support.
Yeah.
And this is a clear indication that at least some of the senators and congressmen are getting a little bit worried about how much of a leash they've given Trump. Trump, as an executive, is allowed to do some short-term things with war or trade wars or something like that, but the power has to be the real power has to go back down to the Congress. That's the whole idea of the division of powers, what the founding fathers had in mind, so that one aspect of the government doesn't get too much power. They're balanced by the other aspects of the government.
Yeah.
Right now, it's getting a little bit frightening for some people to see Trump is acting more like a dictator. He's making pronouncements left, right, and center, and is not engaging Congress or the Senate.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And as I said, the European Union is basically looking at where particular products are coming from before it's applying tariffs to them.
Yeah, the European Union, well, of course, it's tit for tat, and they're targeting GOP states, which doesn't seem to bother Trump right now because he has such a cultish following that I think he feels himself insulated. But sooner or later, those Republican senators and congressmen who see their Kentucky bourbon going down, sales going down, or somebody's jeans not selling, or whatever the European Union is targeting, that's going to have a ripple effect. They're going to have to be elected back in again, and I think things are getting plus the fact too that a congressman, or in our case, an MP, is responsible for their own jurisdiction and trying to make things as good in their jurisdiction as possible, regardless of the party stripe.
Yeah,
they want healthy employment, they want hospitals, they want roads, they want all the things that would strengthen their particular riding or or congressional district.
But that was part of any democratic horse trading that goes on, isn't it? The big factory in my area, my riding, my congressional seat is aluminium. We would need to get so I'm fighting for the aluminium workers.
You might, but you might have a factory that needs a lot of aluminum, but you don't have an aluminum smelter anywhere close to you. You have to get it from Quebec. So if you have a factory that relies on a lot of aluminum, or a manufacturer relies a lot of aluminum, and then they say, okay, now you have to pay 25% more for that aluminum. Now you really, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and there's an old smelter. There's an old smelter in the neighboring state that's halfway decommissioned. Maybe we can get that working again, type thing.
Well, yeah, you try to plan for your district. That's
and you horse trade on that, and that's how a lot of that kind of works.
Well, yeah, but my point was that whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you're going to want. You want to be reelected, and the whole thing of targeted tariffs is to target those areas that belong to the Republicans, that Republicans hold, and hopefully make things uncomfortable there enough to have, during the midterms, more Democrats elected into Congress, so that they can start to balance the power that's in the White House right now.
And while we're talking about EU targeting products from GOP-led states, Canada's hit back with $29.8 billion worth of tariffs.
Yeah, this is an additional tariff. Now, today, Ford and LeBlanc are going to be meeting with Lutnick.
Yeah.
The way Lutnick talks on TV, it doesn't sound they're going to get anywhere with the guy. But if it's a good cop, bad cop thing, which I kind of think it is, there's an aspect of this where Lutnick will talk and say, well, it's not as bad as you think. But Lutnick himself has said they wanted all the cars built in the U.S. that the American people drive. Really, do we then say all cars in Canada should be built in Canada? That kind of thing.
I don't really know. You see, with all of this cross-border and the fact, the car industry has basically been saying that it's not possible to build a purely U.S. manufactured car, because all of the parts, etc., come from Canada, US, and Mexico in equal parts, and not to mention others from outside. Now, we know, we know how awkward that is, and I don't know. You might end up with a market where you've got Canada building Canadian market cars, US building US market cars, trouble is that will hurt us.
Well, it's kind of strange, like very, very strange, the way they're thinking here. So they want all the car manufacturing to be done in the United States. They want all the smelters to be in the United States. They want all the steel mills to be in the United States. So they want all the steel they use to be made in the United States, all the smelt. What that does is that's a kind of an isolationism that doesn't work. What you do is you reduce like the big mantra behind capitalism and free markets is you look for the best deal where you can find it. If you need aluminum for whatever you're doing, you go to Quebec to buy it because that's where you can get it the cheapest and the best because you can't produce it close by. But if you insist on having something produced close by, then your aluminum goes up inside the country anyway because you can't produce it as inexpensively as Quebec does. So you put a 25% tariff on it, build a smelter that makes aluminum 25% more expensive than what you would have got from Quebec without a tariff. But then that puts you on the back seat because somebody's going to buy that aluminum from Quebec that's 25% cheaper and outproduce you. And then what you have to do then is protect your markets by putting up more tariffs. And this happened in Australia. Apparently, they put on a lot of tariffs in Australia to protect their industry during the 50s and 60s. And Australia went backward. Like they didn't get color TVs till well into the 70s, kind of thing. So they protected their domestic industries, but their domestic industries become retarded compared to the rest of the world. It was held back, and they were, they're getting to the point where they wouldn't they were outside the competition of the rest of the world, and their manufactured goods stayed older and less modern, and so they had to stop that because they were losing ground technologically. I mean, they were
and that's exactly what happens. That's a prime example. Television, you think as well. That's a crazy example, but you're absolutely bang on. When a country falls behind, that's exactly the type of thing that does. The first color TV in Britain was in the 60s. But we didn't really get it. I don't think the man on the street got it until probably the mid to late 70s.
Oh, I still remember people going to somebody's house who got a color TV and everybody looking at it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they started. I think the one that England always refers to, where England won the World Cup in 1966. I think that was actually filmed in color, but nobody had color TV in England at the time.
Yes, it was in color because you can see some of those highlights even today. I think I believe I've seen them, but
I've seen the highlights in color, but the quality of the color compared to the quality of the color today is nothing.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about grass, and when you look across the grass in the distance, the grass, you can only see the green on the grass in the close up. In the distance, it looks white.
So and England was still recovering from the Second World War, for crying out loud. It was only 20 years after the bombs, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely that was. But but basically, so you're right. Those are prime examples of exactly how how industry is impacted.
Well, yeah. So this isolationism, in anybody's real mind that this is not really going to work for a long period of time. So we don't really know what the end game is here. When you have journals like, the Wall Street Journal say it's the stupidest of all time. You get talk of Trump sessions. everybody doesn't really know what really is the end game here. I mean, using excuses like fentanyl and people coming back and forth the border. If you look at outside news agencies outside of North America report on this, they all say the same thing, that the fentanyl and the people going across the border is just a ruse in order to do this, because the amount of fentanyl and the amount of people coming back and forth across the border. In fact, it's probably more like most of the journalists believe that Canada suffers more from immigrants coming into the country, and more with illegal guns and illegal drugs coming in from the United States. Yeah. So this could have been something that was negotiated between the two countries. The U.S. could have got mad at Canada and say, "Look, you got to do a little bit better, but we could get mad back. Okay, we'll do what we can, but can you stop those illegal guns coming in, or help us at least stop that gun coming in?"
Yeah,
so there are different aspects of irritation between the two countries,
and a lot of that is about
illegals are just not true.
Yeah. And a lot of what you just said was about actually sharing intelligence across the border security people, because
they already did that. They already did that. So that they did that now already in a big way. Yeah. You know, if the U.S. agents felt that there was going to be a bunch of, well, we saw that big bust of all that cocaine in Toronto a few months ago.
Yeah,
billions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars of cocaine. I have a feeling that probably got tipped off by FBI or DEA or something like that along the way.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Well, you're listening to Talking Niagara, and it is Thursday, the 13th of March. So just thought I'd say that. And moving on to the next category, we've got Canadians can't afford to relax the barriers on their banking system.
Yeah, this is a very good article. It's something that we hear that the U.S. has a big problem with Canada banking. We're not allowed to restrictions of banking. Well, that's not really true. There are U.S. banks here in Canada, but what they want to do is get to the point where they take over the banking system up here and integrate it with the one in the U.S. This, according to the article, would be extremely damaging to Canada. As we know, in 2008, after the crash 2008, Canada survived that crash much better than almost any other country.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, I did a look upon that. I worked for an international bank. I did some work that was based around their compliance with the Basel Accords, the risk factors associated with a number of banks. One of those banks being ABN AMRO, and in 2008, one of the banks that collapsed in 2008 recession was ABN AMRO. Right, so there's plenty of banks that did not deal with the Basel Accords correctly, but most of the UK-based banks, most of the Canadian banks, most of the European banks fared much better than did the American banks.
Well, we still had regulations, and that's what's irksome to the Americans right now. They went into investment banking, and they want the regulations that we have on our banking that saved us basically from what happened in the United States and the devastation that happened there. Remember, the people who lost money, the average person that lost money in their investments and whatever else after 2008 never really did recover. And nobody went to jail for it, which tells you where the power really lies in the States. When everyone knew this was going to happen, knew the U.S. Government was going to bail them out. So of course, Canada is very, very nervous about having the deregulations that the U.S. has, because once they got rid of Siegel and Glass, or Glass and Siegel, which was that regulation on banks that insisted that it had to have a certain amount of money in it in itself. Once they went off to become investment banks, they were able to take enormous risks, and of course, almost destroyed the world economy through greed and massive amounts of greed and lies. You got places like the guarantors of stocks giving stocks and investments AAA ratings because they're going to get paid for giving him a AAA rating. If you didn't give it a AAA rating, they would go to someone else that would.
Yes.
So the fix was in basically, and people lost an enormous amount of money. But we did much better up here because we maintained those regulations. And the only bank that really got hurt by that was CIBC, who had significant investments in the United States.
Yeah.
Also, we will lose our solidarity. Now, it does put in the article that says that South Korea had a difficult time coming out of that 2008 recession because it was too aligned with American banks.
Yeah. And the other thing is, remember this, that at the end of the 2008 recession, once all the dust settled, Barclays Bank bought Lehman Brothers for $1. $1. Right?
Yeah, but Lehman's was just full of trash.
Yes.
In it, and it probably took millions of dollars to fix that. Well, of course, they got the money from the feds anyway. So
absolutely, it would have done. But the point being is, for Barclays Bank, British Barclays Bank, that was a worthy investment.
Yeah, probably, and
let's put it this way, Dave. You and I couldn't afford to have spent that $1 to buy Lehman Brothers.
Oh no, yeah, I know. We'd have to quickly sell it for 20 if we could get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like this article because it does, for the average person like you and me and our listeners there. We find that one of the main how American banks and want to overcome Canada. They want to be able to control Canada banking. If they control Canada's banking with their big firms, then they're the ones that are going to be issuing, pushing and for whatever mines they want to open or whatever else. They will have the government at their fingertips. They'll have heavy duty lobbyists in Ottawa and so on. So we have to protect that. There are certain things in our sovereignty we can't give away, despite the huge power and presence of the U.S. Remember, the U.S. banks don't care about Canadian people. They don't care about Canadian people.
Yeah,
they want to enrich themselves. So if somebody says to a big banker in the United States who wants deregulation in Canada, they say, well, that's not going to be too good for the average Canadian person. They say, well, too bad. I can make more money then. This is about money. It's not about people.
Yeah.
We don't give a damn about your country's sovereignty. No, it'd be better off if it didn't have a sovereignty so we could do more what we want, make more money. That's basically that's what they want. Money. And so you have to regulate it.
Yeah.
Untethered capitalism is not a good thing, as we saw by the 2008 crash.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as you say, Canada got through 2008 not unscathed. BMO
relatively unscathed.
Yeah, BMO took a massive hit during that, and as did I think TD. As did many of the other smaller banks.
But held out very well.
But they held out. Yeah,
they held out very well comparatively because our regulations, the regulations we had, it would not allow the investment banks to do what they did in the United States.
Yeah,
which was stretch their credibility, their credit, and mask it. You didn't get things like mortgages being incorporated into stock bundles that were poison.
Yeah,
you had much less of that going on.
there were people in the United States in that 2008 recession who were up to date on their mortgage, but because of the mortgage collapse they lost their house.
Oh yeah. Florida got devastated.
Yeah.
If you had money after the crash, you should have invested it in Florida, because I knew a person that went down there, invested, and they had a restaurant and a club going or something like that. When the crash came, then their property was devalued incredibly.
Yeah.
Because of the mortgage. What was that term for the mortgage? Low.
Yeah. You're meaning reverse equity mortgages, where the equity is higher than the equity is lower than the mortgage value.
No, I meant the ones where they were giving mortgages to anybody that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't remember what the term was.
Yeah.
It's a mortgage equivalent to junk bonds.
Yeah, kind of. It was just like they were giving mortgage to anybody that
Yeah.
if you put a mirror up to their nose and missed it over, you got a mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, and Mike's saying Canada did not survive better. They created shadow banking, and our real estate has gone through the roof since. The rich got to hide their money while we got gouged.
Yeah, but our houses did not collapse. We did not find in Canada. We did not suddenly find that our home that we've been investing, like we're 60 years old, the home that we put equity into that we thought was $250,000 is now worth $100,000.
Well, and then so
that's what happened in the States. That did not happen here.
But then you're also in a situation whereby I've seen the equity trap happen in many places. That happened before in Britain one time. The value of houses went down by about 20%, and there were people, basically the mortgage lenders had been lending out more and more money, and they ended up in a situation where many of these house owners, they're basically saying, well, my house isn't worth the money that I'm paying out for it, and they sent the keys to the mortgage company. But that said, one of the questions about the Canadian market is that the 2000 crisis was relying upon risky new asset classes and unregulated asset-backed commercial papers, right? And particularly those mortgages that were around at that particular time that were effectively junk bonds.
Yeah, it was poison assets, but they were rated AAA rating.
Yeah.
You know, and of course they're rated AAA rating, because if they didn't rate them AAA rating, the company would just go to another rating service to get that AAA rating.
And probably they get a AAA rating from the Madoff organization.
Yeah. Well, we saw when Congress was questioning AG&G, that they were one of the rating companies, that they sent like kids, like their junior people to speak to Congress, and Congress says, "What? Why did you? This stock was really bad. Why did you rate it AAA? It's just an opinion. It was just an opinion. How could you have opinion if this was a AAA rating when you could see obviously that it was worth nothing? Oh, it's just an opinion, sir. It's just an opinion." So they got away with it because.
Yeah. What we were talking about there was the American subprime mortgage crisis.
You know, it was supposed to be an opinion on their opinion that says it. And these subprime mortgages were sewn into these packages, investment packages. And it's clever the way they did it. They made it so murky. And when you have a bunch of mortgages, and traditionally when mortgages pay off, I think around 93 to 95%. So they're very low risk mortgages, generally speaking. So when people started buying these bundles, and that included mortgages, they weren't really too worried about it because historically mortgages was a pretty good thing. But no one realized the subprime, how deep it was. And they were sewing the subprime ones into bundles that normally had ordinary mortgages. It was a real scamorama, man. And yet nobody's really goes to prison for that one.
Well, and the crisis led to a severe economic recession with millions of jobs lost.
Yeah, and a lot of people losing their investments for retirement. You heard story after story of that, of people who were of retirement age who couldn't retire because the investments they put into their properties or other things like their homes, that they hoped that, they had a big house, they were going to sell it and use that money to retire with. They couldn't do that because the homes were devalued. Their stocks were devalued, so they couldn't retire. So you had all kinds of stories of seniors working well into their 70s when they should have been able to retire and enjoy life a little bit.
Well, there was one
example. There was no consequence for the banks on this one. They were bailed out, and they got a tongue lashing maybe, but that's about it.
And the worst of this is I also recall at the time. Yeah. Anyway, let's not go there. I'm not going to go there. All right. Well, that's been kind of quite a roller coaster, and that's of course one of the reasons why they're saying that basically Canadian banks cannot afford to relax the barriers that protect them right now.
Yeah, definitely. We saw what happened in the United States, and that will happen again when they go, they go rapacious with their to build up wealth at the. Nobody cares about the average person when there's money to be had. They just blow you over. So definitely the regulations that Canadian banks have and the independence and sovereignty of Canadian banks is very essential. This article made a very good argument for that.
Yeah. All right. And I think we can call it quits at that point, Dave.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, everyone. Enjoy the day. I might just go out again. I'd have to look around for skunks. I hope they're gone. But anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.